Let's talk about the economics of work. We're going to break down the basic forces that shape, well, every single job, every salary, and every career path on the entire planet. From your first summer job all the way up to the C-suite, it's all driven by a really fascinating set of economic rules.
Okay, so here's the game plan. First, we're going to look at the two main ways economists see the world. Then we'll get a sense of just how huge the global labor market really is. After that, we'll dive into the two big players, the employers who want to hire, and the workers who are looking for jobs. And finally, we'll see what happens when those two sides come together.
So, to really get a handle on the labor market, you first have to see it the way an economist does. And they basically use two very different but super important lenses to analyze everything.
You could think of it like this. Positive economics? That's the scientist in the room. It just describes what is. It makes claims you can actually test, like, if you raise the minimum wage by X%, youth employment will fall by Y%. It's all about data and facts. Now, normative economics, that's the philosopher. It asks what should be. It's all about values. Asking things like, should we raise the minimum wage to make sure everyone has a fair standard of living? So one describes reality, the other debates how to make it better.
Okay, with that in mind, let's zoom way out and try to wrap our heads around the incredible scale of this whole system. We're not just talking about the jobs in your town, we're talking about a massive, global engine of human effort.
So, quick question for you. Before I show you the number, just take a guess. We've got about 8 billion people on Earth. How many of them do you think are actively working or looking for a job? It's a pretty mind-boggling number.
And the answer is an absolutely staggering 3.65 billion people. That's right. Almost half of the entire world's population is part of the labor market, powering our global economy every single day. And you know, that number isn't just sitting still. As you can see here, it's been on a steady climb for decades. Now, this isn't just because the world's population is growing. It also reflects some huge social shifts, like more women entering professional fields and people in general having longer working lives. This creates incredible opportunities, for sure, but it also means we have this constant challenge of creating enough new jobs year after year.
So where are all these workers? Well, this map tells a really powerful story. The Asia-Pacific region is the undisputed heavyweight champion, with more than half of the entire global labor force. Just let that sink in for a second. 1 out of every 2 workers on this planet is in Asia. That one fact shapes pretty much everything, from where your phone is made to the economic strategies of every other country.
So we've got billions of workers ready to roll up their sleeves. But who actually hires them and why? Let's break down the first big force in this market, the demand for labor that comes from employers.
The first thing to get is this idea of derived demand. It's super important. A car company, for instance, doesn't hire a factory worker just for the fun of it. They hire that person because you and I want to buy cars. So the demand for the worker is derived from our demand for the car. If we all suddenly stopped buying cars, those jobs would vanish.
And you know, any company, doesn't matter if it's in that huge Asian market or somewhere else, is always doing this constant balancing act. They're juggling 3 different markets all at once. The labor market, where they find people, the capital market, where they get machines and technology, and the product market, where they sell their stuff. A little change in one of those sends ripples through the other 2.
So when a company decides whether to hire someone, it really just boils down to 3 things. Number 1, how badly do people want what we're selling? Number 2, what's cheaper right now, a person or a machine? And number 3, how much can a person actually get done with the tech we have?
Let's dig into that price question a little more. What do you think happens when a company has to start paying higher wages? It's not as simple as they just hire fewer people. There are actually 2 different things going on at the same time.
First, you get what's called the scale effect. Higher wages mean higher costs for the business. That usually means higher prices for you, the customer. And if prices go up, we tend to buy less stuff. So the company scales back production and, you guessed it, needs fewer workers. But then there's also the substitution effect. The company looks at its rising payroll and thinks, you know what? That fancy new robot is starting to look like a bargain. So they substitute capital, machines, for people. And notice both of these effects point in the same direction, less demand for human workers. And all of this leads to one of the most fundamental rules in economics, which we can see right here in the labor demand curve. And the rule is so simple. The curve always slopes downward. As the price of labor, which is just the wage, goes up, the amount of labor that firms want to hire goes down. That simple downward slope explains a ton about how businesses make decisions. All right, let's flip the coin. We've talked about the companies doing the hiring. Now let's focus on the other side of the equation. The billions of people who actually make up the supply of labor.
Every single one of those 3.65 billion people is basically trying to maximize what economists call their utility. And that doesn't just mean getting the biggest paycheck possible. It's about finding the best personal mix of income, free time, job security, and just, overall happiness with what you do. Every job you've ever applied for was you trying to solve your own personal utility puzzle.
And when you look at a whole profession, what you see is this supply curve that slopes upward. Why? Well, because wages act like a giant magnet. Let's say salaries for data scientists suddenly go through the roof. What happens? Well, a whole lot more people are going to start taking coding classes and switching careers to become data scientists. A higher wage pulls in a bigger supply of workers. It's that simple. Okay, so we've got these two forces pushing in opposite directions. We've got firms that want to hire less as wages go up, and we've got workers who want to work more as wages go up. So what happens when they actually meet in the market? Let's bring them together and see how it all balances out.
This meeting point has a name. It's called market equilibrium. And in a perfect world, this is the sweet spot. It's the wage where the number of jobs available perfectly matches the number of people who want to work for that wage. There are no shortages, and no one who wants a job at that pay is left out.
And this graph shows that magic moment perfectly. See where that downward-sloping demand curve crosses the upward-sloping supply curve? That one little intersection point gives us the two most important numbers in any labor market: how many people are employed and what the market clearing wage is going to be.
But, of course, we all know the real world isn't a neat and tidy graph, right? This simple model gets messy because of what economists call market failures. People don't always have all the info about a job. Sometimes laws or other costs get in the way. And of course, government policies like taxes or a minimum wage can intentionally push the wage away from that natural balance point, usually for social reasons.
But the big takeaway here is that these forces, they aren't just lines on a chart, they are actively shaping your life, right now. Which brings me to one last question for you to think about. Look back at your own path. When you chose what to study or picked your current career, were you making a rational economic decision? Did you consciously weigh the future salary against job satisfaction and think about the other careers you were giving up? It's a pretty fascinating way to look at one of the biggest decisions any of us ever make.